And we back on Fight Feed, MK Network, you know what it is. Today we're joined by Dale. This show is basically about everything that has to do with MMA. Today we're just basically gonna be scraping just the surface of what happened this past weekend. But let me give Dale a bit of the mic so that he can tell you his credentials as the analyst on the show and me as the presenter. Mr. Dale?
How's everyone doing? I hope to explain a lot about the content based on the sports of mixed martial arts. There's a lot of aspects to mixed martial arts that has been happening and has been trending all over the world globally. A famous vibe of stardom has been sprunging along, coming through the sport, with people being in CrossFit to actually competing and fighting their opponents. Over the weekend, over the 20 years, UFC has been one of the biggest pay-per-views worldwide, and has featured stars like Brock Lesnar, WWE wrestlers like WWE, Brock Lesnar, CM Punk, even Dave Batista have been in the MMA vibe. They've tried, some of them didn't succeed. But okay, let's not talk about that. We'll talk about UFC.
I think the listeners would rather hear about why should we listen today? Like, I just want you to just give them like a brief background about
I just want to give you guys a background about how I've been following the sport. I've been following the sport because I've been in a sports school. Physically myself, I've been training for years. I've been into rugby and other sports. I found my love for mixed martial arts, and I've been following the sport for more than 10 years. I've seen fighters come from nothing and made themselves stars in the industry. I've seen guys be at the top of the game and then fall hard in their lives and then in the sport itself. My background in UFC MMA is that I've competed myself in Johannesburg, in South Africa. The sport in our country is not that famous because of the lack of the foundation and development, community development. My background is just to give you an analysis on what's happening globally, what are the main fight cards, who are the people that are trending all over the world and doing the most in the sport, and what motivation they're giving off to the rest of the world.
Okay, thank you, Dale. Okay, Party DJ here as always, guys. Been a MMA fan for probably since 2010. Around about the times Brock Lesnar was going about it. So commercially, I've been watching it for years. Around about the same time EFC came out, I was watching EFC 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And if I was in Joburg, I'd probably go to another fights like everybody else. But because of time constraints, let's not get into too many things. Let's just go straight into it. Chandler versus
Dustin Poirier.
Can you give me your thoughts on that?
UFC fight card 282. We're gonna speak about a fight from about two fighters, Dustin Poirier and Michael Chandler. They are two experienced veterans in the UFC on that UFC fight card. They are both from the US. Dustin Poirier is a much younger contender in this, but more confident in his way of fighting. He's also been in the sport for a while. He's also been a guy that took big losses. He took losses against Conor McGregor. He took losses against.
This is Dustin, right?
This is Dustin Poirier. He took losses against Conor McGregor. He took losses against. He took a loss against Robert Whittaker. He also had a downfall in his career. He was a pretty boy but arrogant in the beginning of his career, but he came up humble and he's starting to actually grow and make a name for himself, coming back.
Do you think Dustin has probably one of the best comebacks in UFC history?
Not, I wouldn't say to that degree. UFC fighters, personas and level of their mentalities in the game is they don't perceive it as a game. They perceive it as literal combat where they would view themselves in their personal ways to enrage and contend in that fight and stuff. And at times, some of the fighters rise and fall through those emotional battles and mental instabilities that they face. Some of the fighters, you notice, they drop weight classes or they go higher weight classes. It's because of the consistency in their lifestyles they also keep. It's a very
stringent.
it's a very strict sport.
Yeah.
The level of training is not accustomed to what is on the rest of the planet. For example, in swimming, your normal rugby, your normal. It's a high intensity training level that needs a lot of time, a lot of conditioning, and a lot of mental meditation in order to face the challenges in the sport itself.
Going into the fight, I watched the first round. I'm sorry, I was tired, people, but I watched the full fight. I recorded it on DSTV, and I feel like Chandler has been rushing into these UFC fights. I think he still thinks it's the previous league that he was in. I don't think he's mentally ready for the UFC because the UFC is the ultimate, how can I say, the MMA showcase that you can show your career. So I don't think, do you think Chandler is ready for the UFC or is everybody just beating him? Because Oliveira beat him just before this, if I'm mistaken, if not 2 fights.
Michael Chandler is a very experienced fighter. He's reaching his peak of his age. Also, he fought against Oliveira. He also took big losses, but his style hasn't changed. MMA changes over time. There's new competitors coming with a different style. Chandler as your normal old school ground grappler. He has a stand-up game. He's got a one-directional offense, where I think Dustin actually made already in the beginning of the fight. He already took charge of it because what he's learned in his experience compared to the previous time he took losses is he did everything completely different. When Chandler shoots to take him down, he was always defending, and he would reverse grip, and he would have a stand-up fight. So Chandler, in terms of age, I think he's fatiguing. He's just fading out a little bit more, and Dustin is starting to be at the top of his shape at the moment.
Moving right along because of time constraints, we wanted to comment on the Esperanzo versus Zheng fight, but I seen the strawweight. It's no one really has the title for that long because Thug Rose Namajunas had it just before her, and I think the lady from the Czech Republic had it. So we're not gonna delve into that much, but it's the strawweight probably the best entertaining weight class for the females because none of the champions can seem to defend it for more than 2-3 fights.
Out of honesty, the lesser weight or the lower the weight class, the more entertaining the fight, because the big guys are accustomed to grappling. They're accustomed to holding and wrestling on the ground. When you fight featherweight, when Conor McGregor started and Jose Aldo, you get fighters like Jose Aldo and the other guys. It was always a stand-up fight. There was always knockouts. Crowds would stand. That's why the pay-per-views were sold out. The lighter the weight class and the more competitive the fighters are, the more entertaining the fight, especially when it's a stand-up fight. Okay,
moving on to the shock of Africa. As Africans, me and you were shocked that the second Nigerian brother of ours has unfortunately lost his title. Israel, the last style band, Alasanya. Unfortunate, but you seem to predict this in some sort of way, and I think because of your prediction, the show basically was born, and we take this time to appreciate your time and everything for it. But is there, because of Kane's time constraints, let's not delve in too much into the fight, because you saw he got injured during the match. There's so many. But do you think Israel can come back after losing two, not consecutive fights, but he has lost against, I think it was Jera for the light heavyweight interim title, and now he's lost his title. Do you think there's a way back for him, or should he just go to light heavyweight? And we apologize to our Nigerian brothers for the loss. We've lost another great Nigerian champion, and it's a sad day for Africa, but it's a party in Brazil, I should presume.
In my opinion, Israel Adesanya is one of the best fighters mentally, physically. He's artistic with the way he fights. He changes his style constantly to defeat his opponent. He's one of the only fighters that will be respected the most in the sport because of his level his level in the way he treats the sport. He treats it like we used to play PlayStation when we were kids. That's how he treats the sport. It's a game for him. He changes his style because he believes he's a superhero in the sport. That's why that man is such a motivation, not to a lot of people in the world, not just Nigeria in his country. He motivates kids around the world, even coming from poverty and coming from poor areas where there's no facilities for the sport. I believe Israel Adesanya is going to make a comeback. After his next fight and after him taking the title back, I believe he's going to get his first biggest money fight. His points on the fight was he took 3 rounds and he lost 2. He was all over Alex Pereira until Alex checked him out on that nerve on his leg, and he couldn't angle Alex out. But on points, if he defended the game, Israel would have won. But we'll not get technical. I just believe he'll come back a stronger fighter. He'll take his title back and most probably go for the light heavyweight also. So that's my confidence on Adesanya.
Just to close it, we have another fight card coming this weekend. Lewis versus Spuic, or I don't want to mispronounce his name, but that's the fight card coming. Do you have any comments on that?
It's difficult to comment. They are both similar type fighters. UFC it's a difficult game. The underdogs have been taking the last 2 pay-per-views, which was very shocking in my per se. So it's been an unpredictable game. You don't know who to put your money on.
Best sport in the world right now, right?
Yeah, it's difficult to say. So the heavier the weight class, also technically the fights they become heated, and then people are looking for high rankings at the moment. So I just think also our current heavyweight Ngannou has to keep his eye on the ball, not set a foot wrong. Our current the Dana White from UFC always finds fighters abroad that don't even have records that are beating the top, one of the best ranked athletes in the UFC game. Alex Pereira beat Adesanya. He only had 4 fights in the UFC. So anything is possible in that sport. So that's all I'm saying. His net worth went from $200 million US. His net worth jumped from that to $750 million US overnight. That is Alex Pereira right there. So that's what I believe how the sport changes a lot for people.
Alright. Fight feed coming to you live. Dale, Party DJ here from One Knowledge Network. We are out. Peace.